In talking about getting started on your speech, the book has the 6 steps that it covers in chapter 11 of the, I think it's 12 steps to the speech, and that's fine. I think it's all very good and useful, and I'm not going over all of that because I think it's pretty clear and direct, so I'm just going to let you sort of just sort of have it. Uh, but I want to talk about getting started and emphasize this notion of how you come to your topic. Right? So when you're getting started on your topic, you might want to think about issues that have been in the news, and that's things that have been in the news that maybe you think people aren't as aware of and they should be, or something in the news that you feel you can address in a way that would be very relevant and current. So that might be a way to get started. You should really try to brainstorm, all right? And the key to brainstorming always is this idea that no idea is a bad idea. At least when you're starting out, just say, let me list out all my ideas, and then as you look at it, maybe there's something there you hadn't given a chance. Just go give yourself a chance to sort of like free write, jot down on a piece of paper all the different things, if you had the chance to, you would talk about or you want to be able to do. If you had to give a presentation on something that would actually be of use to you, what would it be on? Is there something that you could teach people how to do that, possibly if you want to, I guess you could monetize, or you could move into, use it as a piece to show people what you can do as a professional. Just brainstorm, jot down what those things might be, right? Um, you can take surveys of your audience. You're not going to do that just yet. You're going to start surveying your audience next week. You're actually going to do some surveys with your audience. In general, you might try to do that. Survey your audience formally or informally. Find out what they're interested in. Also, I think about the time that I was asked about a year ago to give a presentation to other educators, health professionals, people working in various parts of the community, talking about issues of sexual assault and so forth. And I do some work on consent and doing consent talks. And so I talked to a couple people about, so what are you interested in? What sorts of things would you be hoping for and expecting to hear from me talking about consent, right? So I talked with them about where are they, and that helped me narrow down what I want to talk about. Right. But really think a lot about your own interests and pursuits, professional and personal, but really try to think about things, topics that relate to things that you'd like to do in some sort of professional way as a service thing or something for which you'd be paid for, that are things that you care about, that you want to speak to, how you want to make yourself established or known, how you might want to advance yourself or some future possibility career path. Please be thinking about those things. As we get into talking about the speeches, as I said in the overview of speaking, there are really 2 basic types of speeches that we're going to be focusing on in this class, and that's the informative and persuasive. Right? So in being informative, the point is you're not trying to change anybody's behavior. Right? So when you have a topic, if you're wondering if your approach to the topic is informative or persuasive, the question is, are you trying to get people to do something? Do something or do something differently? If so, you're being persuasive. Telling them how to do something, right? If you want to grow tomatoes, this is how you do it, is one thing. But telling you why you need to stop buying produce at the store and grow your own, that's persuasive, right? So what you're doing is providing an option. Not telling them that they should do this thing, but saying, if you're inclined to do it, here's an option, right? So you're not changing a behavior, but providing an option for it. You're not trying to change or create their opinion, telling them what they should think about something. You're offering them information about it, right? And so, yeah, it's just that, right? You're not trying to create their opinion, but give them information so they can form an opinion. You're not creating a judgment of what is best, of what is better. You're just exploring the pros and cons. So you're not telling us why marijuana should be legalized in the state of Tennessee or why it should be kept illegal or criminal in the state of Tennessee. Instead, you're talking about if it were to be decriminalized, this is the pro, this is the con, right? No judgment, just there you are laying out the sort of the paths as they are, right? So persuasive speaking is not about, or informative speaking, excuse me, informative speaking is not about should, right? It's not about should, right? It's the how, when, why, who, what, or where. It's letting us know about these things by which we decide then to do something or not, but not telling us what we should. So as we move then to persuasive speaking wants some sort of change, really. A change in a belief, right? And beliefs we might think about being like religious or political, and I guess it could be that, but beliefs, or in debate we call them fact claims, right? So like, who shot JFK, right? To change what they believe is true or not true. We might ask for a change in an attitude, right? So we're talking about how they value something. Just the attitude that we need more of something, we need less of something. So we need more gun control, or we need less of I don't know what. Uh, so that would be an attitude. So behavior, why it is you should do something or why you should stop doing something. An example of something that you should do is why you should ride share. I guess something you shouldn't do is that if you knew you had an audience of people who are or likely to you like those Juul smoking pod USB things, I don't know, right? You know, why you shouldn't do that, right? That would be changing a behavior. So in being persuasive, we often think of it as being a yes or a no situation, right? Do you agree with something, yes or no? And they go and they put a check mark, like little kids with the little notes they pass. Do you like me, yes or no? That's how we sometimes think of being persuasive, as a simple yes or no. That's really not what it is. Instead, we should think of persuasion as occurring along a continuum, right? Persuasion occurs along a continuum. At -6 is being totally against something, whatever it is. It could be totally against wearing a mask, right? And at +6, it is wearing a mask absolutely all the time that you're outside of your home, right? That's -6 is totally against it. I'm not wearing no stinking mask. +6 is the mask is going to fuse to my skin, right? And so it's not that we're it's not we're trying to get somebody to go from not liking a mask to liking a mask, right? But moving them along the continuum in a certain direction. So it might be moving them from saying masks are stupid and I hate them to I don't like masks but I can see their benefit, which would be like from a -5 to a -3, right? I still don't like them, but I see the benefit, right? Which is less harsh. Moving them from I don't know if they're all that good to I think they might be useful, right? Would be like from a -1 to a +1. From I don't know to I guess they are, right? But that I guess they are isn't really solid because you might also try to get people to go from say a 3 to a 5, from I try to do it most of the time to I'm going to be really good about doing it. So persuasive speaking isn't just getting people from a yes to a no, or to start or to stop, but it can be about moving them along more toward, because most of the time when we make decisions, we don't automatically go from a no to a yes. We go from less of a no to even less of a no to a weak yes to a stronger yes. That's really what happens in persuasion, and that's more of what you're trying to do. In week 4, I'll be addressing how you go about locating research with the materials we have at ETSU, but I very quickly want to touch on something from the book just to reemphasize and underscore really how important it is, which is how we go about looking at and thinking about the research that we do to support ourselves and our speeches. When you find something that you think might be appropriate to use in your speech, you need to assess it in a few ways. One of those is you need to look at the qualifications of the author, right? If you're writing about something that is medical in nature, you're writing about something having to do, with the pandemic, you want to think about the qualifications of the individual. Because a person who just has some opinions they're sharing, I'm not as interested in as, say, the writings or the opinions of somebody who is an epidemiologist, somebody who studies viral infections. Well, I guess be an epidemiologist, right? But, so the qualifications of the person writing, the qualifications might also be the source of the article. People Magazine, I'm probably going to hold up as good of a qualification as I would really a medical journal, right? Or a university conducting medical research. Currency is really important. If you were to talk, for instance, about children who are born premature and survival rates, back even in 1990, 30 years ago, children who were born, and a pregnancy is considered 40 weeks, children who were born at 25 weeks had a much lower survival rate 30 years ago in 1990 than they do today at children born at 25 weeks have a pretty high survival rate today, or much higher than it did from the 90s. So sometimes currency is really important, right? So currency, not money here, but how recent is that statistic? Sometimes that's really important because things are going to change quite a lot, right? The cost of education changes a lot year by year, so currency can be very important, right? The fairness, right? If you're reading something and it seems to really have a, for lack of a better term, an axe to grind, if it's not very fair, be careful because it's possible that if they're not just laying out the facts, but they're making a case in a way that's diminishing the other side is stupid, sort of thing, there's a good chance that they have been cherry picking information and they're not as reliable as they might be. Right? Sufficiency has to do with the extent to which the piece of research you have addresses the thing that you're pulling from it. Right? Sometimes you might have an article that's talking about issues, because you're talking about technologies of cancer treatment, and you have an article that's talking about somebody, a famous person who has lived with or survived cancer, and in passing it mentions their treatment. Well, if that's just a little piece of it, that's really not sufficient. If it's talking about their life living with cancer and you're focusing on the technologies of treating or managing cancer, you might mention them as an example of somebody who's, used the treatment, but you're not learning a lot about the treatment from this probably if the article you're looking at isn't really talking about the different ways that we have to treat the cancer. So sufficient. Does the article you have really, or the book or what have you, does it really spend much time discussing your topic, or just it's briefly thrown in there, in which case it's probably not as good of a source. And also, accuracy. Sometimes with certain facts and certain numbers, you want to see whether or not those still line up, whether or not those seem to be accurate. Accuracy obviously is very important. Right. So that's where we are, and I'm going to finish this all up with another separate lecture on how you go about incorporating the research into your speech. And by that I mean, how do you actually go about citing your research?